Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here again with a review of a bit of old gadgetry tat. What we have here is the Lexibook Traveller, a route navigation system for your car or automobile, depending on how you speak. It's like a GPS navigation system, but there's no GPS. It's made by a company called Lexibook, who you probably maybe know as a French company who make electronics kids toys, such as those fake laptops for toddlers or kid-friendly smartwatches and tablets and the like. But back in the day, they were involved in making stuff like this, and I think in the 90s they made those electronic dictionaries you could carry in your pocket. Let's get into it. So what it is it's a device where you put in your start location, your destination. It gives you a route to follow. Quite simple, really, when you think about it. Price-wise, I think these went for about 70 or 80 pounds back in the day, which is, what, 90 euros, $110, $120, which was cheap compared to, like, the emerging GPS systems that were coming out at the time. So you could see the attraction of buying something like this as opposed to buying one of the early TomTom or Garmin GPS systems, which were going for £200-300 at the time. Build quality, pretty good, pretty solid, although it is very hard to get the batteries in. But yeah, figured out eventually. I think the slot's a bit too small. So yeah, this device, I can't actually figure out when it first went on sale. There's not a lot of information on the internet about it, to be honest with you. Well, there's a lot of websites about it and a lot of videos about it, but there's not much in giving out solid, detailed information, which is weird and unfortunate. What I would guesstimate this went on sale about 97, 98, and in 2002, 2003 it was replaced with this version, which is the exact same, except now it's known as the Travel Machine. It's got a new case, and it doesn't have a backlight. This one does. It also uses a different style of card. Yes, so the card is kind of the Achilles heel of this device when you think about it. It looks like a PCMCIA card, but it's just a ROM inside. This is the GB database. It doesn't include Northern Ireland, which is a bit of a pain for a lot of people who live in Northern Ireland, because politics aside, it's supposedly part of the UK, but so many UK and foreign companies act like Northern Ireland doesn't exist. So I'm not going to get into politics here, but because it can kind of get complicated. Yeah, so the card itself, they went for £20 to £30 a piece. This one's the GB card. Now, this is not a street level card. It kind of goes from town to village to city, plus most major tourist attractions and points of interest, but there are no local streets stored in this card, which is a bit of a pain. And also, because it's read-only, every couple of years, I think it was every 2 years, the plan was Lexibook would update the card, and you'd have to just buy a new card if you wanted the updates. And 2 years is a long time when you think about it. Given that TomTom and Garmin were using SD cards for their GPS devices, and you could download updates from the internet, this seems a bit backwards in comparison. So yeah, basically every 2 or 3 years, if you wanted to update your route navigation data, you had to pay for the card. The only 2 street-level cards they made were for London and Paris, as far as I can tell. So you could navigate by streets in London, but otherwise you were just navigating from one town to another town. And it's kind of limiting when you think about it, given that the whole point of GPS isn't for getting you across the country, it's to getting you to... Well, GPS navigation is to get you to a specific street in a specific town, so it's all very well going to London or Birmingham or wherever. But if you need to get to a specific street, then this is useless. So, like I say, early GPS systems definitely had an edge on this, even though this was marketed as the low-cost, cheap alternative to GPS systems, which is kind of bombastic when you think about it, because this is severely lacking compared to like a real GPS system. So, let's have a demo. Switch it on. I'm going to pull in this glue stick to stop the light reflecting off it. So we put in a start location, and I'm going to go with Carlisle because I know it pretty well. So Carlisle in Cumbria. Select it. My destination, I'm going to go with York again because it's a town I know well. Lancashire, I don't know, there was a York in Lancashire. Let's go select that. You can go via, but I'm not going to do that, and you can also put in avoid places. There's also settings, and that basically is for defining your units or petrol cost and things like that, which is a handy extra to have, but I'm not going to look at that here. So we go and select route, and that plans the route out. Takes about up to 30 seconds, depending on how complicated your route is. So the distance is 116.6 miles, takes about 2 hours 25 minutes, and I haven't set the cost or the fuel cost, so we don't get any of that data. This button here is if you have the optional cradle attachment, you can attach it to a computer and the route will be printed out on paper if you wish. But if when you're ready to go, you press route. And here's where the whole usability thing comes into play. So what it's saying is you follow the A6 for 3.8 miles. You see the free. That free is like a rough estimate of the miles you've covered. And then you're on the M6 and then you're on the A66. But to get the detail of what you need to do, you press the level button, and that takes you into level 2, which is more detail. And it says, Carlisle, we embark on the A6. And you press the information button. And it says, leave by Butchergate, which is a big shopping street in Carlisle. Not anymore, it's all pubs now, but back in the 80s it was a big shopping street. And travel for 3.6 miles until you get to the junction with the B6263 M6. And that's it. And now you're on the M6. So if I go back to the route, escape, how do I get out of this? Oh, I've cancelled out of it. There we go. And the whole idea is that once you move on to the next road, you press the down arrow, and if you want more information, you go into this level button and press information. And then it says you're heading south, Penrith, join the motorway M6, and go for 4.5 miles to Southwaite, which is services there. There's a couple of services there. There's what's the one? T-Bay service. It's really nice. It's very it's run by a farmer. It's really lovely. But anyway, back to the route and level 1 detail. And then when you get onto the 66, you press that again, you press the information button, which tells you what to do. And the problem is that if you're driving, you really shouldn't be messing around with stuff like this. Now, you're trying to keep in sync with your journey. GPS, it knows where you are and it says, in a mile, turn off the motorway. This doesn't do that. You have to keep an eye on the screen, and, you know, it's not really usable. It's not really good quality usability when you think about it. So I'm surprised they were trying to compete against proper GPS systems. There is a backlight on this, which isn't very good at all. You can kind of see it there. Oddly, it's unlike a lot of backlights on devices like this. It only lights for 30 seconds, even if you're using the device. So you kind of expect that, the normal thing is for it to switch off after 30 seconds of no use. But with this, it just turns off after 30 seconds, no matter what you do, unless you manually turn it off. Yeah, one of the odd things about this is the lack of maps in it. No actual mapping, an actual physical map. Now, I know the screen isn't detailed enough to do like anything akin to a proper GPS map, but it would be nice to have some sort of basic wireframe map just to give you a rough idea of the route you're taking. But they say it's all text-based and it's all by road name, and that's the problem is the lack of street-level data in this is really annoying, because when you're leaving a town, it sort of is like earlier it said leave Carlisle by Butchergate. If you don't know where Butchergate is, then you're kind of screwed if you don't live there. Everyone who lives in Carlisle knows Butchergate, but if you're a businessman in town, you wouldn't have a clue. Yes, and let's have a look at one weird anomaly in this. I press escape and start a new route. So let's say I'm going from Carlisle, Cumbria, and I'm going to Belfast. Now, I know I said earlier it doesn't have Northern Ireland data, and it does, for some odd reason, have Belfast Ferry Terminal in it, and that's the only Northern Ireland location that's in this. I'll select that, and I'll give the route. As it works it out. Come on, come on. There we go. Let's have a look at that route. Okay, go back. So 126 miles, 2 hours, 6 minutes. That's a wee bit weird because it fails to mention the 3-hour ferry crossing. Well, it's actually 2.5-hour ferry crossing between what was then Stranraer and Belfast. So, you know, that's a bit weird. It's kind of like it causes you to question the accuracy of some of the route planning in this device. I don't know if this applies to everything, but I'd call it an anomaly, definitely. So it's a bit of an odd one. So anyway, like I say, I don't know when this device and the follow-up device went out of production and stopped being sold. I'm assuming mid-2010, no, 10, so I say like 2005, 2006. I can't believe that they'd be selling these into the smartphone era. But here's where it gets interesting. I found a YouTube channel. Someone's got a bit of an obsession with a channel called bid.tv, which is a god-awful auction channel based in the UK where they sell all sorts of rubbish tat, like clothes made by a brand name that's supposed to sound fancy, but it isn't really. Or stuff like this. And in fact, 5 years ago in 2015, they were selling this on bid.tv, and people actually paid £40 for it. Which I can't get my head around. Because 2015, smartphones were well established and there were plenty of free navigation apps on smartphones. So the fact that people would actually pay £40 for this, and I'm assuming it had, well, it was actually this model, but I'm also assuming that the route navigation database was well out of date, but you know what they say, a fool and their money are easily parted. So there you go. I think these will be on well, this was on sale 5 years ago. So to sum up, how would I describe this? The wrong technology at the wrong time. Like something like this in the 1980s would have been revolutionary. To sort of try and start selling this device in the late 90s, early 2000s, when proper GPS navigation was becoming a big thing, just seems very overly ambitious. So the fact that they did sell it all is kind of surprising, but like I say, it's not really a good device. The lack of street level data is a big issue for me. It makes it kind of unusable. Like getting from one town to another is relatively easy if you kind of know what direction to head in. You just follow the road signs. The lack of street level data is the issue. So there you go. If it had been around in 1986, 87, this would have been revolutionary. Unfortunately, this came later, and it's a bit... it's not that very good, really, is it? But anyway. There you go. Cheerio. Take care.